Hey everybody, welcome back. Sorry, it's been a few weeks since I got some videos out. I have a lot on my plate right now, so I'm kind of glad actually that we're in the off season because it would be a struggle for me to be paying really close attention every week. But hopefully, I will get all of that squared away and be much more open in my time once we actually get the next installment, whenever that is. So yeah, we have had not any massive things happen. If it was like major, 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 I would drop everything and do a video for you, but still some really fun things and interesting things. So I'm going to try to get a couple of videos out this week to talk about them. We're going to start, as we usually do, with YouTube comments. There aren't too many of those. And then we'll jump into asks, okay? Okay, so first comment. Hey there, on the fever thing you were talking about, Herschel giving them water. Herschel, he had found and picked a bunch of elderberries that are known to reduce fever and flu-like symptoms. It wasn't just water he was giving them, just saying. No, you're right about that. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And interestingly, when he went out with Carl to pick the elderberries, there was some interesting symbolism going on there. There was a female walker whose foot was caught in a bear trap. There was a walker that was similar to Jim from the first season. I haven't gone back to analyze that in quite some time, but yeah, definitely interesting. But the reason that I mention the water and make a big deal of it is that it's still being shown symbolically as a life-giving symbol. Of course, the elderberries helped, but like with Sasha, particularly, she's the one that always comes to mind. She passes out, and when she wakes up, it didn't look like he had really administered any elderberries to her at that time. He had given her an IV with water, and it was because the fever was so high that they were, of course, because they were sweating and everything, they were getting dehydrated. And that's a big deal because that's how it is with the Walker virus too. It's been said that um, because the human body can't fight off the virus, or obviously it's trying, that, fever, what a fever does is fight off a virus or bacteria or whatever it is in our bodies, try and kill that off to save us. And it's like it's trying to fight, so the fever shows up. And then it can't, so the fever gets higher, and it can't, and the fever gets higher, and then eventually they expire because their fever goes too high. If it gets above 100 and 304, 105, then it starts to cook your brain, and the human body can't withstand that. So they die, right? But it's really more the fever than the actual virus that's killing them because they can't withstand that kind of heat. So you would need something to bring down the fever. And anyway, I think it just all is going to feed into the bite cure theory and how they're going to end up battling the Walker virus, and I think that season 4 was a foreshadow of that. And it was Gimple putting in a lot of hints as to where they were going with the general, world building, with the mythology of the virus. So yeah, you're absolutely right that he did do elderberries too, and that obviously helped people, but they really showcased the water as something that sort of quote unquote brought them back to life when they passed out. And keeping them hydrated was key. And I feel like that's a hint that maybe the way that they're going to eventually fight the Walker virus is through extreme hydration so that they can keep the fever down and probably other things too to reduce fever until their body can fight off the infection. So anyway, but great point. Thanks for bringing that up. All right. I'm leaving here some info regarding Saint Ignatius. Yes, thank you. I do have, I was going to talk about that too. So good, good. Saint Ignatius of Loyola was a Spanish nobleman and soldier who pursued honor and military glory. His life changed dramatically in 1521 when he was severely wounded during the Battle of Pamplona. During his long recovery, he read religious texts, which led to a profound spiritual conversion. He later founded the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, channeling the discipline and strategic mindset of his military background into a structured spiritual movement focused on education, mission work, and active engagement with the world. There's also a Saint Ignatius of Antioch, an early Christian bishop, and one of the important church fathers, arrested by Roman authorities for his faith. He was taken to Rome, where he was martyred, traditionally believed to have been killed by wild beasts in the arena. In his letters, Ignatius frequently used medical imagery to describe Christ and the spiritual life. One of his most famous expressions describes Jesus as the physician. Interesting. The metaphor became very influential in early Christian thought and later inspired Christian traditions of caring for the sick, which eventually contributed to the development of hospitals in the Christian world. Thank you for that. I was going to talk more about Saint Ignatius of Loyola, and I didn't realize there was a different one in Antioch. Um, I mean, I don't have a whole lot more to add in terms of the history. It's important to know that, I mean, between the two, we have no idea which one. Maybe they're referring to both. But we have a really obvious reference to Ignatius because um, it's mentioned in Slab Town, right? That it's another hospital in Atlanta, and there is no hospital for Saint Ignatius in Atlanta, which means it is totally made up for the show. And that's important. That tells us something. That tells us that they're using it as symbolism, right? So it's important that Ignatius, obviously, there's a lot of Christianity around it. Also, he was a soldier, a military person. So we've got fighting, we've got leadership, we've got religion. I mean, all of those things are things that we see around Beth, right? And I like that it specifically talks about medical stuff. So I'm kind of thinking that the second one from Antioch might be more the one they were referring to. Of course, there's no way to know that. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's interesting that he was martyred. You could say that about Beth from season 5. Now, of course, we do believe that she will be, quote unquote, uh, symbolically resurrected as well, that she didn't actually die. But as we always say, in Teen Family's eyes, they think she did. Um, but yeah, the medical imagery, we've got that medical piece, which is definitely something we saw around Beth, and great physician. I actually really like that. There's a poem, and I'm not going to remember the name of the poet now. I would have to look it up. But she was a Christian, and it's literally called The Great Physician, and it's referring to God being able to heal us and heal people. And so it's kind of similar to that. But yeah, thank you for that. That's actually more than I dug up. So, I mean, I think there was a question about Ignatius and what the Ignatius theory is. Um, it's not so much because we don't really see any example of him being resurrected. It's not like Saint Nicholas that actually does resurrections in the myth, right? But they're using it as, as something, as a symbol for Beth. And again, that could be any of these things. There's the fact that there's the medical, there's the Christianity, there's the soldier kind of thing. Um, One thing that also does jump out at me about the first one from Loyola is that when he, and you guys, you can look this up, look up St. Ignatius on Wikipedia, you'll find out all kinds of stuff. When St. Ignatius of Loyola got hurt, he was wounded during a battle, and it says during his long recovery, he read religious texts. That's actually a very famous story that he asked for certain books that I think were historical, and they didn't have them. So his sister, I want to say, don't quote me on that, I might be messing the story up a little bit, somebody brought him religious texts, and that's because that's all they had where he was, and they were kind of like, yeah, I know this isn't what you asked for, maybe you won't like it, but this is all they have to read, so if you want to read something, here you go. And he started reading them, and they had a huge, huge impact on him, and he completely changed his life, became a Christian, eventually was canonized as a saint, started doing, what do you call them, pilgrimages to the Holy Land. I mean, it had such a huge impact on him that it completely changed him. And I can see that also being maybe a blueprint for Beth, that she got hurt and it's going to change who she is. Not in a bad way, just in an enlightened kind of way. So I can see something like that being the case too. So either way, we don't have like a huge theory that's as far as I know, unless anyone does. If you do, let me know. But it's not like, oh, because they said Saint Ignatius, that means this is going to happen. It's not so much that, or at least it's not any different than all of our other theories, right? It's just that when she returns, she's got the Christian symbolism. Maybe she'll return in a medical capacity of some kind. Maybe she's working inside the CRM in a medical capacity of some kind. Maybe she's going to be more of a soldier than she was before. I mean, we don't know, but those are all the kinds of ideas that we have around Beth's return. And so Saint Ignatius is just another way to point to that. So yeah, this is pretty much the gist as far as I'm aware. But you guys let me know what you think, and if anything else comes to mind for you. And thank you so much for sending that information in. I appreciate it. All right, next comment. OMG, yes, Dawn's movement was very conscious when she reached for her weapon, but then when Beth was shot, she was the most surprised that it happened. Yeah. So obvious that it wasn't her who shot our girl. She even mouthed, it wasn't me. And I think the Grady cops knew that. I always felt that it's odd how easily they were just okay to let everyone walk away after killing their leader. They let Dawn take the blame for Beth's death. Yeah. Well, and one of the big ones that I'm always surprised more of the fandom, I mean, outside of TD, doesn't pounce on because it's like, you guys, what do you think she meant by that? That doesn't make any sense, is when I believe it's Shepard, the female cop, says she's the one that says stand down and keeps them all from shooting each other right after Beth is shot. And she says it was just about her. I mean, what does the general audience think that means? It's either got to mean Beth or Dawn, right? Those are the only two hers that they're about to shoot each other over, right? And personally, I think that she meant Dawn. I think that Dawn's own people didn't like her and didn't like the way she was leading and were looking for a way to take her out of leadership. But they didn't know how to do that without starting a gunfight or killing her. And I think they were honestly, most of them were decent people there. Obviously not Gorman or O'Donnell, but the other cops, they just, I mean, they certainly weren't as go get 'em as Team Family is, which was frustrating for all of us to watch. They just wanted to stay there and kind of not do anything. But at the same time, they didn't want to like murder Dawn. They weren't okay with that. And so it was actually kind of convenient for them that Daryl killed Dawn, and then she that's her way of saying, look, we only cared about her and we're not wanting to kill any of you now, which is what always made me think that maybe they had set it up somehow to take out Dawn during the prisoner exchange. I'm not sure I totally am leaning into that anymore. It's just something that I've thought before. But it's odd that Shepard says that. And the only other option would be that she means it was just about Beth, which would suggest that they shot Beth. You know what I mean? And that wouldn't have been okay with everyone. So it just doesn't make any sense. But we don't know what the Grady cops knew. We were not told. Certainly, we don't know who the shooter is, although there's a lot of compelling evidence that it might have been O'Donnell. Anyway, so yeah, I totally agree with that. All right. Honestly, I'm just getting back into the show. I'm not even sure if Morgan is still alive, but his words, everything gets a return. Beth is coming back, and I love your channel. Oh, thank you. And yeah, I totally agree. Everything gets a return is Morgan says it a lot, but it's a theme for the overall show. I mean, I've said this plenty of times before, but it's kind of like what Herschel said about resurrection. I mean, even everyone who dies and comes back as a walker is getting a return. And, that's not necessarily a good return, but everything gets a return. And that's a huge, I feel like you guys know this by now. Gimple is awesome at symbolism. So all he's doing is saying, okay, so we have a show about zombies. When people die, they come back from the dead. They are returning. They are resurrecting in some capacity, even if it's not the really cool religious way that most people think of it. How can we lean into that as a theme? How can we make every arc and every storyline reflect that in some way? And that is what great writers do, is they create their stories around a central theme. And this is one of the biggest themes because it is inherently what is happening in the horror movie that the dead are rising, right? So they're getting a return. So yeah, great point. And I'm glad that you're back and getting back into the show. Okay, and I find it interesting how Andrew Lincoln said that moment, everything broke apart, was very strange. Yeah. And Andrew Lincoln is the one who gave the interview saying that Beth and Emily deserved this death, which sounds like he's being mean. But when he said it, if you listen to it, he's not. He's being super nice and saying, this is so cool for her and she deserves to have this arc. And that wouldn't really make sense if they'd really killed her off in Coda. So I think when he says that, he's, of course, they're editing that interview so that it's not giving anything away. But I think when he says that, he is talking about her, having a death fake out and returning later. And there was actually a few strange things he said about this. So everything broke apart. And see, this is I think what a lot of the general audience doesn't really get, and that is that it was such a pivotal moment. A lot of people are just taking it, especially those who, didn't like Beth and everything. They take it as, oh, she died. Oh, well, just another character death. And, oh, they just did that to spur on Daryl's arc and, all the things that they say. But it was like from the moment that Gimple took over, starting with, I mean, really, it was the end of season 3, but full on, doing his own thing was the start of season 4. They were moving up to that point where Beth dies, or supposedly dies, is shot. And it's a huge moment where the group really fractured in a way that they never really came back from. They were never quite the group that they were before when they were at the prison, right? Even when they got to Alexandria, you had people being angry, you had people with PTSD doing their own things, which is why things were going so wrong. And so, I think Andy was giving us a lot of hints about that, about how strange it was, just the fact that he says everything broke apart. I mean, you could say that at other times. You could say that when Negan arrived. You could say that when Andrea died. You could say, you know what I mean? You could say that in a lot of different places. This is the only place that they actually say that about and are like, this is a big deal. And yeah, at the same time, they are kind of underplaying it because they don't want to give away that maybe she survived. We all know that. But if you read between the lines and you look at what they're actually saying, they're telling us that this was a big deal, not just for Daryl, but for the entire group, and it was planned that way. So I almost feel like I almost want to say that if this is what broke the group apart, then Beth returning is what's going to bring them back together, right? So of course she's going to be super important for Daryl's arc, and we're all looking forward to that in the romance. But I don't know. I feel like for a long time I was kind of, the first few years, especially after Coda, I was like really defending us, TD, and in the sense of people saying, well, you think everything's about Beth and the whole show revolves around her and da 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 da, and they would like kind of accuse us of that. And I would say, no, that's not what we believe. We're just excited about her arc. I mean, I think she's one part of the bigger story. And when she returns, it's not going to just be the Beth show. I mean, Andrew Lincoln is going to be returning. I think all the characters are going to be returning in some capacity. Um, so that's not what we think. And it's still not, I stand by that. But at the same time, her arc was like, I don't know, it was almost like the glue that held everything together, and then everything broke apart. And then now, as they're talking about this return show, it's going to be coming back together again. So it's no coincidence that Andy has said that he's in talks to return as Rick, and at the same time, we have Emily on Dead City, and that all of these things are happening together at once, right? So anyway, that was like a really long-winded way to answer that quote or that comment. But yeah, I agree. Thank you. And I definitely pay attention to what Andrew Lincoln says because, as I've said since season 5, all of the mainstream characters, maybe not the side actors and characters who come on just for a few episodes or half a season, but the main ones, Andrew Lincoln, Melissa McBride, obviously Norman, obviously Emily, like all of them knew exactly what was going on. And we do have evidence that a lot of them, again, maybe not characters that have come on since then, like if there was a random character in season 10 that was only on for a few episodes, they might not know everything, right? But we do have evidence that pretty much everyone in season 5, I believe Chad Coleman and Sonequa Martin Green, we have really good evidence that they knew, and even the Grady cops knew what was going on. So, and the Grady cops were very minor characters, right? Anyway, so thank you for your comment. It's fun to talk about. I think I just hit all of these. Let's try this one. I'm a shipper at heart and a diehard romantic who always seems to pick the most delusional ships. Please let this one be Delulu ship for real for once. I need it. Hey, I'm with you with that. And it's so funny. It's just because we're all so I think that anyone who's on Team Delusional would have to be a diehard romantic. And yes, that means that we're all a little bit masochistic in the ships that we choose. But I've told this story before with me. I was, even during season 4, I was a loyal watcher of the show, but I was not like online discussing theories or anything. I just tuned in every week and I really loved the show. And so when you had the Beth and Daryl hug, I honestly didn't think that much about it. I was just kind of like, huh, okay. And then I remember my sister, who was watching it with me at the time, tell me there was a lot of people saying that there would be romance between them because of that hug. And it was like, it just didn't really click for me when I first watched it. And then when she said that, I was like, oh, yeah, you're totally right. I was distracted. I totally wasn't getting that. But then I was just kind of like, okay, I didn't really have any thoughts about it either way, after 401. And then I remember my sister telling me that a lot of people wanted Daryl and Carol to get together. And I was like, well, I guess I understand that. They've been good friends for a long time. And I understand why that ship would be around. And even then, I was like, when I first knew that, that there were Carol shippers, I was like, I mean, I guess it would be fine. But they've known each other for a long time and there's never been anything, that sort of thing. And then when I watched Still, of course, I fell in love with that episode. And was like, yeah, I'm totally cool if they get together. This is going to be great. I was super excited for the romance to bloom and everything. And then Alone happened, and it was literally like, oh my gosh, did she just get kidnapped? Did he just chase after her all night? And then from then on, die hard, die hard. So, yeah, I totally understand. And I really do think that you're going to get your special Delulu ship being real and turning canon in this case. So we just need to wait for it. All good things to those who wait, right? All right, I think that is all the comments I have. Let me switch over. How long have we been? Oh, we've been going 22 minutes. I'll do like one ask and then we'll save the rest. All right, random, but I used to watch your videos as a teen and grew up reading your theories. It's crazy to think that Beth is finally getting mentioned in the show. I used to think you were the queen of Bethyl and would watch your videos religiously. LOL. Oh, thank you. And yes, we're glad. You're right. We've been doing this a long time. I was thinking about that and I was like, wow. Back when I started, I actually started my accounts after season 5. So I watched all of season 5 and I was, after Coda happened, then I was definitely getting online and reading theories, but I wasn't posting yet. And I started my account after season 5 got over because I saw that so many people who thought she was coming back when the season ended and she didn't come back, for some reason, they just thought that was it. And okay, if she didn't come back by the end of season 5, then she's not coming back. And we're like giving up. And so that's why I got on. I was like, you guys, just because she didn't come back during season 5 doesn't mean she's not coming back. But that was a long time ago. I've been doing this a long time. It's been a huge part of my life. So thank you for being here with me for most of it. I appreciate that. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it there, but I will be back in a few days with another video. Thanks for being here. Bye.